Thank you. Thank you. So, thank you for that. So, while I get this microphone on, we can get started. How's everyone doing? Oh, okay. That's what I'm talking about. How is everyone else doing? Okay. I get it. It's after lunch, right? You're digesting. That post-meal coma is about to set in, and you'd rather be taking a nap, right? So you know what I'm talking about. The itis. She is ready. She is ready. Okay, so I am Fredrick Lee. I am a radiology administrator by day. I'm the regional assistant director of diagnostic imaging services for Kaiser Permanente in Southern California. I am also an adjunct professor at Los Angeles City College and a doctoral student at USC. So just a few things. Just a little bit busy. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Next summer, 2024. So we have a year left. Um, but this information, this talk is definitely related to organizational change and leadership because we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. So before we begin, I want to get a feel for who's in the room. Do we have any students? Oh, I love students. You guys are amazing. How about supervisors? Radiology. Okay. uh, uh, Radiology, assistant directors, directors, managers in the clinical space. Okay, my clinical folks, my educators. Oh, that's who's here. Yes. The teachers, the program directors and department chairs. All right, the people who make things happen behind the scenes at school. So all of you are my people, right? I started as a student in X-ray. I worked as an X-ray tech. I moved into administration and here we are. So now that I know who's in the room, the next question that I have, how many of you have heard of emotional intelligence? Okay. Okay. That's quite a few people. Now, if I were to come up to you and say, I'm going to give you $10,000. I'm not, but we're hypothetically speaking, right? We can do that. I'm going to give you $10,000 if you can define emotional intelligence. Could you do it? Maybe? Maybe? For $10,000, I'm sure you would try, right? She would at least give it a shot, and that's awesome, right? You should at least give it a try, especially if somebody's going to give you some money. But I'm going to tell you today, by the end, you'll be able to define it. And you'll get from somebody, not me, but from somebody, but possibly from somebody. Okay. So, can you guys see? Okay. So these are our 5 objectives that we're going to meet today. You should be able to download this presentation from the app. I think if you have the app, it should be available to you. If not, you can get my contact information and I can email it to you myself. But these are our 5 objectives for today. So we want to define emotional intelligence. We'll make sure that we do that, but also explain its importance for imaging leaders, those working in imaging, identifying the different components of emotional intelligence and how it is applicable in the imaging department. We'll discuss strategies for improving emotional intelligence as well as strategies specific to real world scenarios, things that happen in diagnostic imaging today. How can you use this when you leave the room today? And finally, we'll be able to evaluate the impact of emotional intelligence on your diagnostic imaging outcomes. So here's our introduction. Emotional intelligence is your ability to identify or recognize and manage your emotions and identify the emotions of others. It is essential for you in diagnostic imaging to be able to do this. Okay? Not just as leaders, but as technologists, because you need to be able to communicate, collaborate, and make decisions. And having a strong emotional intelligence, a high level of emotional intelligence, will help you in these areas. Diagnostic imaging leaders who have a high EI can effectively manage conflicts. But we don't need that. Conflicts don't happen in imaging, do they? The ER is never upset with us, right? They just love us. The OR too, right? We just show up to the OR on time all the time, right? So we need to be able to manage conflict, build positive relationships, and inspire the team within the department. EI also enables you to navigate complex interpersonal dynamics. Okay, things can get touchy in the hospital setting. Things can get complicated, right? You have the OR patient, you have an ED patient, you have conflicting priorities all of the time. Patients, healthcare providers, frontline staff, all need effective communication. So having a high emotional intelligence is a way to do that. And developing emotional intelligence skills will improve your team performance. It will improve your patient satisfaction, and it will improve your employees' job satisfaction. The research. So there is a ton of research out there. At the end of this presentation, there is a list of journal articles that were read where this information comes from all of those. And I tried to find ones that were specific to emotional intelligence in the healthcare space. It may not be related to imaging, but it's still related to the profession. So the research is telling us that a higher emotional intelligence is associated with leadership effectiveness. You are more adept to building and maintaining positive relationships and inspiring your team. Think about it. Emotions are the same across countries, languages, cultures. Happy is happy, whether I speak English or not, right? I'm sad in the United States. I can also be sad in France. So understanding your emotions and the emotions of others is that foundation that you need for that collaboration and building those relationships. Your emotional intelligence enhances communication with your colleagues and your patients. Now, you may be working on your emotional intelligence, but that doesn't mean the person on the phone is working on theirs. Okay, so this is where we'll talk about self-regulation. Everyone is not on the same level of emotional intelligence. We're not starting from the same point. Leaders with a high emotional intelligence are equipped to, again, navigating those complex interpersonal dynamics. Do any of you work in a union environment? Okay. Does that get complex at times? Just a little bit. Just a little bit. We talked about improving teamwork and patient outcomes. The research also tells us emotional intelligence positively impacts decision making. Self-confidence, self-awareness, managing your biases. These are the things that you need to recognize that get in the way or affect the decisions that you make day in and day out. And finally, the results of a high emotional intelligence results in a more thoughtful and effective decision-making process. I've already asked this question, so we'll just keep going. So here's the official definition from the research, from the literature. Emotional intelligence is a set of emotional and social skills that collectively establish how well we perceive and express ourselves, develop and maintain social relationships, because let's face it, healthcare is a social industry, right? I'm not saying socialism, but it's a social industry. We don't do what we do by ourselves. You have a patient, you have a doctor, you have a nurse, you have other people that you are working with. That's the social nature of what we do. Coping with challenges. Have you had any recent challenges in healthcare? I can think of one. Okay. She's right. Just a little one. It enables you to use emotional information in an effective and meaningful way. Your EI can be measured. Just like your IQ. Have you taken an IQ test? Do they still do IQ tests in school? I don't know. Okay. But that's your intelligence quotient, right? Your EI can be measured, and then you will have what's called an emotional quotient, an EQ. It can be measured, it can be improved, and it is a great predictor of success. More so than a person's IQ. Depending on the literature, your IQ is your IQ. It doesn't really change a whole lot over time. You can gain more knowledge, but your capacity for intellect is what it is. You can improve your emotional intelligence. What is the emotional quotient? So this is how we accurately measure a person's emotional intelligence. Okay. It is going to assess a person's strengths and their blind spots, weaknesses, areas they may not have or may not be aware of. It is a predictable way to measure your current level of emotional and social functioning. And it is also a vehicle for developing effectiveness in order to improve performance. Okay. So a lot of science went into this, and there are professionals where you can actually have an emotional intelligence assessment. And one in particular, the most popular one, MHS, Multi Health Systems, is a company that put it together. And so when they put the assessment together, there were 4,000 people who took this assessment. This was in the creation of it, right? And they did that. That was the sample size to make sure that the results of the EQ can be trusted. So that when you take it, you can trust the score that you got to be accurate for you based on what you answered in the assessment. And there are checks and balances. So you know how you give an employee or you give a person a survey, and you may have done this too, and you try to answer the question to make it seem like you're more positive than you are. Well, yes, I would help the old people across the street. Yes, I would, do all of that. But you probably would. They've accounted for that. They've accounted for that. So there are ways that in the system that they can tell that you are intentionally trying to skew your results. It's that scientific. These are the components. There are 5 major components to your emotional intelligence. And they build on each other. Okay, they build on each other. So the first is self-perception and self-awareness. You have to know how to recognize and understand your own emotions. That's where the starting point is. You are the starting point. How are you feeling in this moment? What are your strengths, your weaknesses? What are your values? Do you know? Have you ever assessed it? Have you ever asked yourself? Self-expression. I may be in tune to what I'm feeling, but how do I show that? In the work setting, in the department, when you're working with patients or with a radiologist, or you're at school with a difficult student. No, I'm kidding. You're not difficult. Can you express your emotions and understand the feelings and perspectives of others? You're interacting with other people. Can you recognize what they are feeling as you interact with them? Are you even paying attention to it? Is it even on your radar? A lot of times it's not, because some of us are old enough to come from a time where you were told to check your emotions at the door, right? When you come to work, don't bring all that in here. You come here, we focus on the work. Pick your emotions up when you leave. Pick up your feelings on the way out, right? We need to move away from that, okay? And this is how we do it. Interpersonal or social skills. We don't work alone, right? You at the very least, you're interacting with a patient. Even if you're at a location performing x-rays by yourself, you still have a patient. So you're never truly alone. So you have to be able to interact, communicate, and build positive relationships and work collaboratively with others. Decision-making and self-regulation. Regulation to me is a fancy word for control. It's control. Right? And we have nothing but controls in place, right? Systems of control, right? We definitely have a lot of regulation in California. But when it comes to your emotions, can you manage your own emotions in the situation that you are in? Specifically, when the situation is challenging or changing. You came in to start your day with a plan, right? I need to do this. I have this meeting. I'm going to go here. I have these patients. I have this lesson. That's your plan. Then something comes along and changes that plan, right? The CT machine, the tube went out. That's not a big deal, right? No. We got another one. That's why we have two. Put everybody on that one, right? So self-regulation. Are you running around the department tearing your hair out because of what you're feeling? Do you know how to regulate your emotions? Stress management. See how they build? Stress management, motivation. Are you driven to achieve your goals? Do you persevere in the face of challenges? Okay. Are you continuously trying to improve yourself? This is the ultimate goal. Self-actualization. We'll talk about that in a minute. So these are the 5 main components of emotional intelligence. But it gets deeper than this, because each of these has 3 subcategories. 3 subcategories. So in each of these components, and I'll show you a sample of what an assessment looks like if you ever have one. So you have these 5 components, and underneath them you have these 3 subcomponents. So for self-perception, you'll have a self-perception score from your assessment. But how do I improve my self-perception? Well, it's going to give you a score for self-regard. How do you see yourself? Are you confident? Are you a shrinking violet in the back? You don't believe that you should be here? Imposter syndrome? Self-actualization. Do you know where you want to go, and are you actively trying to get there? Are you trying to improve yourself? Emotional self-awareness. Can you identify and name the emotion that you're feeling? Most adults can only identify about 5. Most. By name. So what's happening is what you're feeling, you're calling it something that it's not, because you're not aware of what that emotion is, because we don't do our jobs in teaching kids how to do that, right? That's where you're supposed to learn. Self-expression. Can you emotionally express yourself given the setting that you are in? Assertiveness. Do you speak up for yourself? Do you stand up for yourself in situations? Independence. Can you work autonomously? All of these factors are calculated into your self-expression score. Interpersonal. You have your interpersonal relationships. Empathy. We work in healthcare. Empathy should be important to all of us, right? Especially to the patients. Do you know what empathy is? Does your staff know? Do they know how to demonstrate empathy? Do they know how to be empathetic? Social responsibility. Do you do things on behalf of other people? Or do you just say you do? But at the core of who you are you socially responsible? Decision making. Problem solving. Because we don't have any problems in imaging. Yes, you can laugh. I know that's not true. Reality testing. Do you live in this universe? Or are you somewhere floating in the multiverse somewhere, not seeing things as they really are? That's reality testing, right? That plays into your decision making. Impulse control. Okay, can you take the time to be diligent to make an informed decision, or are you just gonna decide right now to get it over with? Impulse control. That's what affects your decision making. Stress management. How flexible are you? Remember that plan you had for the day when you walked in to your office or to your department? Do you always get to keep that plan? I have pages and pages of daily agendas that have nothing checked off. I didn't do a single thing that I planned to do today. I did a lot. It's just not what I planned to do. I've got to be flexible. Otherwise, that would upset me. I'm a type A person. When I make a list, if I can't check anything off that list, do you know how that just burns? Like, I will not go to sleep mad. I didn't get one thing done, is what I tell myself. But yeah, yes. See, that's where the flexibility in your thought comes. It's like, okay, I didn't do what I planned, but I still did a lot, right? So yes, you're on the right track. Stress tolerance. How well are you handling those situations when your CT machine goes down? When you walk into class and your projector's not working? Or the school changed your passwords again and didn't tell you and now you can't, right? Are you falling to pieces? Or are you managing that? Optimism. Is the sky falling? Is tomorrow doom and gloom? Is the fire and brimstone coming on Friday? Right? How do you see the future? Do you have a positive outlook? These are all the measured components of your emotional intelligence or your EQ assessment. So the questions that are answered in that survey fall into these categories. And you'll get a score for all 15 of these. Happiness. What is happiness? Coffee in the morning or whenever you need it? Okay, what if I had $10,000? Again, I don't. But let's say I did. And I came to you and I said, hey, Anita, I will give you this $10,000 if you can define happiness. Could you do it? There are a lot of different things that go into what is happiness. Well, in this assessment that you get, you won't get a happiness score, right? Like the other ones, right? So happiness is feeling satisfied and enjoying your life, right? That's subjective. It's an indicator of your overall well-being. So when you do an assessment, these 4 subcategories that we just went over, self-regard, optimism, interpersonal relationships, and self-actualization, these 4 is what your happiness or well-being indicator would be in the assessment. And so if you ever have one, and I know you can't see, but this is what it looks like. So on the left, it's all 15 of those categories, and then you see the measurement. So this type of assessment, this one is specifically from MHS, Multi-Health System. So this is that assessment. It's not available online. You have to actually have someone who is certified to administer this, give it to you, give you access to it. So you would complete it, and so let's say you had a coach, and your coach was certified to do this. The coach would give you a link. You would go and do it. It would take you 30 minutes. The results will go back to your coach. And then your coach will explain it to you. So you get your results from the coach. Because you have to understand what these numbers mean in each of these scales. Right? It's not like, okay, I'm targeting 100 for everything. That's not how it works. So your EI professional will be able to explain to you what your values are, where your areas of strength are, and where your blind spots are. This is an individual assessment. So this is just from you. So once you get it, now you can decide, what do you want to work on? Where do you want to start? You got to measure it first. Okay? How do we apply this? Okay? So self-awareness. In diagnostic imaging, those who are self-aware can recognize their emotions, their strengths, their weaknesses, their blind spots. And this allows them to lead with authenticity. So this is that person, that supervisor, that employee who you know who they are. There's no gray space with them. Right? They don't pretend to be someone that they're not. They're authentic. They're self-aware. Empathy. By practicing empathy, diagnostic imaging leaders can understand and connect with the emotions and experiences of your team. This is how relationships are formed. This is how relationships are formed. An understanding of where you're coming from, where you've been, what you're going through. Right? We all have different experiences. Your experience may be different from mine. I may never have had that event happen to me. I may never have gone through what you're going through. But can I put myself in your situation from your point of view to understand how you feel? That's all you're doing. It's not agreement. It's not acceptance. It's none of those things. It's just understanding. You're having a human experience. I've never had it, but I can see how that affects you. That's empathy. This is how you get a supportive and compassionate work environment. Social skills, right? We're back to interacting with other people. So your social skills, you need to have strong social skills to effectively communicate with your team, collaborate with others, and build positive relationships that contribute to high performance and cohesion. Whether you're in a clinical department or an academic department, you probably have some performance measures, some things that organization is expecting you to do and to do them well, right? How can we achieve those goals? Social skills. We have a shared responsibility in this. You may be the professor or the program chair, but you have different roles. But we're all at the same organization. We're all headed toward the same goal line. And having effective social skills is how we get there. Self-regulation, self-control. Self-regulation is control. How do you regulate your emotions and maintain composure in your high-stress situations?
Know yourself and understand when you need a moment or whatever you need, and how to quickly assess the situation and come back to it with a different ability.
Exactly. And that's self-awareness. It's not complicated. These are skills that we aren't really taught these things. I didn't get any of this in my rad tech program that I went to in California with all the other stuff that we had to do. And that was 20 years ago. So, I mean, I'm sure it's changed now. But yeah, high stress situation, rational decisions. Again, are you in this multiverse or a different one? Where are you? Motivation. Can you inspire and motivate your team? Remember those performance metrics that we all have to meet? How are you going to get them to do it? Because you're the boss and because you said so? Does that work anymore? No. We have to find other ways to get the job done. We have to find other ways to stretch. We have to find other ways to get the staff to do more with less. How do we motivate people in today's healthcare, in today's academic climate? Okay, so let's go through some additional applications here. So self-awareness that we just talked about, recognizing when your personal bias or emotions may influence your decision making related to your team or your patient care. So what do I mean? So remember that I said it's just an understanding, right? It's not agreement, it's not acceptance. How do your personal biases and emotions show up when you have a patient who's transgender and you have your own personal feelings of transgender issues? Real world situation. That patient is still entitled to care. That patient is still entitled to an exceptional patient care experience, regardless of your religion or personal views. This is how it shows up. Did you treat that patient differently because he or she is transgender than the patient before? You have to reflect on that. right? Everyone who comes through the door that you interact with is not going to believe and be the same as you. Diversity is an understanding of differences. That's it. Empathy. We're back to that. You have patients who may be scared, who may be anxious, who may be in pain. Remember COVID? Just kind of. So those of you who were in the clinical spaces at that time, you were essential. You still had to go to work. How was your empathy level then? Honestly speaking, I could not imagine what it would have been like to have been an imaging tech at that time. I was an administrator, still am. So I got to go home. I was sitting on my couch, on my laptop, working from home, trying to find gloves, trying to find bleach, trying to find supplies to get to the department so that they could do their job. But yeah, I couldn't imagine, how am I taking care of a patient when I'm just as scared as you? Or now I'm scared of you because you have something that we've never seen before. We have no vaccine, we have no treatment, we have no ventilators. The last thing I want to do is misstep, catch this, take it home, and right? How can I be empathetic to you when I have a storm of emotions? Self-regulation. That's how all this works. It's all connected. Social skills. Effectively communicating, collaborating with, we love the radiologists, don't we? There's none in the room, are they? Okay, good. We can talk about them. No. They are our partners. They do the hard work in the dark. After we've been punched and pushed and spat on and all that stuff, they get to sit there and read it and get all the glory. But we still have to work with them, right? They still come out of the dark from time to time and have to stand there and do something with the patient, maybe in IR or in CT. You've got a biopsy. You have to be able to collaborate with them. Referring physicians, they love us too, right? That stat CT that I ordered at 9:00, it is 9:15. Why is it not done? It was stat. I needed it actually yesterday. Why didn't you do it yesterday? I know I just wrote the order today, but I wanted it yesterday. Okay, how do you explain that? That's a very logical and plausible situation. Happens every day. Happens every day. What's better is when you have the stroke patient from the ED and another ED physician is calling you because they're both fighting to get the CT done. Right. I love that. Yeah, it's like, well, both of these patients are in the ED. Both of you are in the ED. You tell me who goes next, right? I'll do whoever. But we have to be able to communicate that, right? I do have conflicting priorities. I do have something else going on. You are unaware of it, and I have to make you aware of it. How do I do that socially? Self-regulation. I can't get upset with you just because you're upset with me on the phone because of whatever's happening in your department on your side. You've gotten that phone call, the nurse in the ICU. You hear all the alarms beeping in the background. I need a chest x-ray stat. No, the order's not in. I'm going to put it in. You read my mind, girl. I'm doing it right now. Don't you hear me clicking on the keys? Yeah. Can you maintain your composure and remain calm? What were you doing during COVID when your ED was busting through the seams? You're doing x-rays in the parking lot, in a tent, right? Remember that? That's a high stress scenario. You don't know if you've picked this up, if you're doing this right. You're getting dressed in the garage. You're taking your clothes off in the garage. You're spraying yourself down before. We were bleaching and spraying our groceries. Come on now. Right? None of us were regulating our emotions properly back then. Motivation. Can you inspire and motivate your imaging professionals to be continuous in their learning? If we didn't have CEUs as a requirement, would you be here? Of course. Of course. Right? Because you're in the room. But you get what, if the regulations didn't say, the gods at the ART, the accreditation folks, didn't say we needed 24 every 2 years, would you still go do it? Are you motivated to do that? Right? The profession only requires me to have an associate's degree. Why do I have a doctorate degree? Well, I don't yet. But why, you see what I'm saying? That's motivation to do more than what is asked or necessary. So how am I going to get this CT tech to stay late, which is doing more than what you are supposed to? You did your 8 hours. You did your 7 to 3:30. You're ready to go home. But my afternoon tech is not here. Can you stay? What do I throw at you? Okay? That's usually what we do. Okay, we're going to get you some overtime. We're going to do some incentive pay. Okay, I'll give you this day off. You can have that. You start bargaining. Right? But pizza. Does pizza still work? According to social media, pizza doesn't work anymore. I don't think they want pizza anymore. We still like pizza. You can give me a pizza any day. But yeah, we have to find a different way to motivate people. Everybody doesn't like pizza. Some people can't eat pizza. That's unfortunate. Huh?
Some people are vegan.
And that's just terrible. Being vegan is not terrible. I live in LA, right? So when people are vegan, it's like they want you to know they are vegan. Okay? And they wear it like, oh, I'm vegan. How dare you insult me with milk that's not from an almond or, oats. Like, how dare you give me these animal products? Blasphemy. I didn't know you were vegan. It's okay, right? But how are we going to motivate people when pizza doesn't work or they're vegan? So all they eat is air and water. We got to find a way to motivate them, right? Soy, can you have soy as a vegan? Yeah, you can have soy, some tofu or something. Tofurkey? Is that a thing? That's still I've never had it, but I'll take your word for it. Okay. So now that we've gone through what emotional intelligence is, how it's applicable in your diagnostic imaging spaces, now we want to talk about how do you improve it? Where do you start? Right? Starting today, how do you improve your emotional intelligence? That's what this is about. So what? Yeah, you can go out there and you can find a coach and you can get an EI assessment done and have your EQ officially measured, and you can do that. You can do that. That is what is recommended. But you may not be there yet. But you want to start working on it today. So what can you do? Practice mindfulness. Being mindful. So be fully present and aware of your thoughts, feelings, sensations in the moment. Whatever moment or situation that you are in, do you have an opportunity to be mindful in that moment? What am I thinking? What am I feeling as I'm getting berated by this nurse on the phone for this order? What am I feeling as I go into the OR late because you added this case on and didn't tell us? What am I thinking when you order 5 C-arm cases and the hospital only has 3 machines? I love that. That's an easy no, right? Like, I only have 3 C-arms. Like, you can't do 5 cases at once. But they try it anyway. Sensations. So the reason you are being mindful, there's usually indicators. Something is happening to you before you exhibit that behavior, that emotional behavior, before you have your outburst or, whatever emotional response you're going to have. there's usually something happening to you before. You being mindful and practicing mindfulness is how you identify what's going to happen before it does. Now you have an opportunity to self-regulation, to control the response. Notice none of this has been about stopping the emotion, suppressing it. We're not supposed to do that. What happens when we do that? It builds up. And then you get these weird behavioral responses. Remember COVID? I've said that like 1,000 times. All my examples are from COVID. But it was the perfect example of emotional intelligence run amok. You have a question.
I do. So when you said that we're supposed to move away from, like, check your emotions at the door,
Mm-hmm.
well, when you first said it, I thought, oh, that's great. We do that in our program. And then you said, oh, we're supposed to move away from that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So what I'm saying is I can't, it's unreasonable and unrealistic to tell someone to check your emotion. Like, how do I do that? How do you do that?
You stop being human and feeling.
You really, it's unnatural to do because the way your body is designed, you have 5 senses, right? And those 5 senses are how you interact with your environment. That's how you take in information, okay? And when you take that information in, it goes to the center of the brain, and the first thing that happens is you get an emotional response. You can't turn it off. The problem with the design is the part of your brain that controls your behavior is the frontal lobe. The signal goes there second. So where you think about how to behave, that's in the front. But you're already feeling the emotion. So this is why you saw, what were the people doing at the grocery store? Throw my food on the floor because I'm upset at this mask I have to wear, right? That behavioral response, that's not appropriate for the situation. That is the emotion controlling the person. What we should be teaching people is how to control the behavior that comes afterwards. All you have to do is pause. It's self-regulation. If we had a high enough emotional intelligence and we were able to recognize and control our emotions better, none of us would have to check them at the door. When we feel it, we still know how to interact. We know how to communicate it. Yes.
So if you're advising a student who, let's say, they don't have clinical time for this, and they went through a breakup.
Okay.
So they're having heightened emotions, and they want to go to clinic. Then that would be talking to them about taking the pause or self-regulation.
Yes. And then this is where you employ your empathy. I'm assuming you're the clinical coordinator. Okay. So can you empathize with this employee? Have you ever gone through a breakup? At that age or whatever, I don't know what the parameters are. Reassure them and help them understand, okay, you still have commitments, right? So what's the latitude here? Do you need the day off? Is there room for that, right? You're trying to be empathetic. If there's not, and the person still needs to work, can you give them a minute to collect themselves, right? And knowing what you know, that this person is emotional or in distress because of their breakup, can you check back with them throughout the shift to see how they're doing? That's what I would do. So back to mindfulness. There are mindfulness activities. There are things that you can do, you can practice. You can go online. There are apps out there that will help you with mindfulness and meditation. But what you're doing is practicing mindfulness. This is how you develop your self-awareness. And this is how you get to regulate. I have to know what I'm feeling. I have to be aware of when I get that tingle in my big toe on the left, that I'm about to flip the table over. Because now I need to leave, right? Because I know what's coming. You can't control or stop the emotional response. It's the behavior that you should be focused on. Because like we just said, we're all humans. Emotions that's what separates us from the rest of the animals. We have reasoning. Like a bear or an animal When they're startled, they react by instinct. They do what they're going to do, whether they're going to attack you because I think you're going to hurt my cub, or they run away. You can pause, think, and make a different decision. Yes.
So people can be at different levels of emotional intelligence
Mm-hmm.
or have not started that journey.
Correct.
So when dealing with people that are not doing these things, is it more about regulation for ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And then the empathy is putting ourselves in their shoes?
Yep.
So what's the best way then to, because it's not empathetic to try and turn a situation around.
Mm-mm. So what exactly is the question?
So what is the thing that we can do in that moment to be honoring of wherever they're at,
Uh-huh.
but at the same time have the behavior that we need to have, because we have to meet people where they are.
Correct. So in your equation, in the situation, what variables do you control?
Yourself.
That's it. So you regulate yourself. I can't regulate you. If you're the nurse on the phone or you're the other person I'm interacting with, and we're having conflict, we're not seeing eye to eye. Okay? My energy should not be in trying to get you to conform. My energy should be in regulating myself. And if we're at an impasse and we're not moving forward because I'm self-aware and I'm regulating, but it's getting tough, my left toe is tingling. You know what we need to do? Let's come back to this if we can. Let's take a break and come back. You're self-regulating yourself, which is also going to manage the situation. Because you taking a break, hopefully they take one too. Right? You can't control the other person. Right? So being mindful, techniques, meditation. Meditation is, I can be mindful in this moment while I'm talking to you, aware of what I'm feeling. I'm a little warm. As you can see, I'm touching my brow. I can tell my heart is racing a little bit because I don't really, well, there's a story behind that. But anyway, so I'm aware of what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, my sensations. But I'm not meditating. They're separate. Mindfulness and meditation are not the same thing. Meditation is a deeper pause. It is intentional, and it is you clearing you're not assessing anything when you meditate. I'm not sensing for anything. I'm not thinking about anything. I'm clearing my mind of all thought. That takes practice. It's not as easy as it sounds. So who meditates? Does anybody meditate? Okay. When you started, who wants to share? How long when you first started meditating? In the back. 1 minute. And how did that go the first time you did it? A minute is only 60 seconds, but it's longer than you think. Your mind wants to do something. So when you sit there, however you choose to do it, it's initially going to take effort to not let the mind wander. But they say, let it wander and then bring it back, right? Let it wander and then bring it back. And then, once you get to your 60 seconds, then you keep adding if you want to go longer. But yeah, I could barely get through 30 seconds. I'm a different breed though. Type A anxiety, my mind is never calm. So meditation is truly something I struggle with, right? It's a skill. How long are you up to now? Okay. She's up to 3. She's still beating me. You're still beating me. But meditation helps. Deep breathing exercises. I used to be a smoker. And one of the techniques that people told me to help me quit, the reason smoking is relaxing is not the cigarette. It's the breathing that you're doing while you have the cigarette. So those of you who smoked know what I'm talking about. You inhale for what? 5, 6 seconds? And then what do? You blow it out for 4 or 5 seconds? That's what's relaxing you. The deep breaths. You can do the same thing and get the same effect without the cigarette. A cigarette takes, 5-7 minutes to smoke? Sit and do the same breathing for 5 minutes. You'll get the same relaxing effect. Practice it. Not now, because I don't want you to fall asleep, but later. Body scans, right? You can start at the toes and just check in with yourself. What are you feeling? What do your toes feel like? What do your feet feel like? What do your legs feel like? What's happening in that popliteal behind the knee? Yeah. Is it in your chest? Your neck? Do your ears get warm? What happens to you as you have an emotional response? This is how you cultivate mindfulness. This is how you get there. Seeking feedback. Now, this one can be challenging because this is putting yourself out there. You go to someone else and ask them to tell you about you. And you're going to sit there and listen to it. I recommend you find someone that you like. Or actually, let me say it like this. Don't seek feedback from anyone you would not take advice from because you don't trust them. Seek feedback from a trusted source, someone who's going to tell you the truth, even if you don't like it, especially if you don't like it. Because that's what you need to work on. Because it's either something you don't see and can be completely unaware that you're doing. So you want feedback. Self-reflection. Think back to a specific moment that went well or didn't go well. How did you feel? What were you thinking? How did you behave? That's self-reflection. Thinking back on how you performed in that moment. Self-reflection is the key to changing your behavior. You have to be able to look objectively at yourself and be willing to say, I am wrong. I didn't say that right. I was really harsh with her. I should not have said that to him. Because if you don't admit that to yourself, you're not going to change anything. So yeah, engage in self-reflection. Self-reflection, journaling. Do you keep journals? Do you still have a diary? Dear diary. Introspection, seeking professional guidance. Therapy. Love it. Love it. Love it. I swear by it. I haven't been going long, but I've been going. And I'm going to tell you this. If I weren't going, I would not be able to stand here and do this. I am riddled with fear when it comes to public speaking. But you couldn't tell today, could you? Had I not? Thank you. I know it because I'm self-aware, but thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Get over whatever is holding you back from therapy. If you have health care benefits from your employer, you need to make an appointment and you need to go. Find a professional. This will help you understand you. You can start working on things and it will literally change your relationships with other people in many different ways. But that's a whole nother lecture. Tips and resources. What can you do today? There are books galore, journals galore, research galore on emotional intelligence. These are a few books. I actually just bought one of these. Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. He's done a ton of research. The EQ Edge, Emotional Quotient, The Language of Emotional Intelligence. Yeah, these are books that you can read. There are workshops. You're taking this class right now, not exactly a workshop. We don't have any activities, but you're introducing yourself to the concept. So then you would take it another step further and actually find a training program or a workshop where you can actually do interactive exercises, practicing mindfulness, practicing active listening, empathy. That was next. Look at that. Amazing. Active listening. What is active listening? There you go. I did not. She did not come to play today. She is ready. Active listening. When I was a radiology director, I would shut up and listen. That was me, yeah. Shut up and listen. You can't be talking and actively listen. Active listening is a task in itself. Listening is not a skill. Multitasking is not a thing. Let's just say that. So if I walk into your office to talk to you and you're still in your emails or you're making notes, you're not listening to me. Not actively. You can hear me, but you are not paying any attention to what I'm saying. You can't relate to me. You're not going to understand me. You're not going to be able to be empathetic or understanding. Seeking out coaching and mentoring. Find someone who is doing what you think is right emotionally. There could be someone at work who already is able to accomplish these skills. Can you work with them? Can you meet with them? Do you have a coach? Do you know a coach? Can you find a coach that can help you with these areas of improvement and feedback? You want to be able to apply emotional intelligence. These are the three main categories: managing conflicts with team members, communicating effectively with patients, and communicating effectively with your healthcare workers. So if we were to look at all of the tasks that we do in imaging, it would fall into one of these categories. These are progressive steps that all lead us to collaboration. So those 15 components that we talked about earlier, these are the ones that focus or that would be helpful to you in these areas. There is nothing but benefits from improving your emotional intelligence. Absolutely nothing but benefits. The main benefits are a positive work environment, enhanced patient care, overall organizational success. This is how you get there. This is how you get there. Emotional intelligence is that powerful. It is that important. We've already covered all of these things. These are your takeaways for today. Self-reflection. The change starts with you. The change starts with you. You have to be able to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. Where are you confident? Where do you need to improve? Feedback. We all have blind spots. The purpose of feedback is to get someone to show you what you don't see. That's why I'm recording this. What do I not see about myself when I'm presenting? I'm seeking feedback. You're going to do a survey. You're going to give me more feedback. Seek it out. Set development goals. Figure out which areas of the emotional intelligence that you want to work on and actually take steps to improve it. Practice, practice, practice. No one is perfect, but practice makes improvement. I'm changing it. Instead of practice makes perfect, practice makes improvement. You can only get better. Hopefully, you don't get worse. I mean, get a new coach if you're getting worse. This is your summary. We've covered all of this today. Any final questions? I think we are close to the end. I did promise you the reference list. There it is. Questions, comments, concerns. How am I on time? I'm right at time. Oh, perfect. Woo! Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I thoroughly enjoyed this topic. But yeah, if questions come to you later, I think my contact information is in the app on the with the conference. So yeah, shoot me an email, say hi. If that's what's on there, yeah. Well, if you know me, then you have other ways of communicating. I know them. You can call me Anita. Were there any other questions, comments, concerns? Yes. You, Anita.
In the old days,
Mm-hmm.
I'm old, we used to have what would be called anger management.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this is a new word for that because in anger management, we would teach stop. housekeeping, take time, assess your,
Mm-hmm.
in this case,
Yeah.
ask, O being options, identify the options you have, and then P, pick an option. Which in your case, for the nurse, you picked, you should come back to them.
Yeah.
Which is, so to me, this is like a new approach, a more expanded approach.
Yes.
To anger
More
management.
comprehensive, because in anger management, I'm teaching you how to deal with anger.
But that's
But we
emotion.
one emotion.
One emotion. Okay. I just wanted to know if you felt that was.
No, I completely agree. Yeah. Anger management, I think, is a subset. I haven't come across anything that says, oh, it was born from, but it's doing the same thing, but it's focused narrowly on the emotion of anger when you feel angry. But what happens when you feel other things?
Well, it's not just self-regulation. Trying to teach employees how to control their emotions.
Right.
I would be more effective teaching anger management. I don't know. I don't know how do you get your employees to do this? It's not just you.
It starts with you. The change starts with you. So socially, social cognitive theory, they're looking to the leadership is usually where people look to as the example of what I'm supposed to do. So what you overlook, you are actually allowing. So when you start modeling these behaviors, you're setting the expectation, you're giving the examples of the behavior, the change starts with you. Did you have a question?
It was basically the same
Okay.
thing. What do you do when you have an employee that keeps showing up and, always putting out that negative energy, and you can only empathize and say, I know, I'm sorry you're going through that. That sucks for so long, and then you're like, stop.
Yeah. Yeah, this doesn't mean don't correct the corrective behavior. You have the corrective action process and all that you still have to do, but outside of that, right, you still set the tone as the leader and the example of what you want, what you're expecting. The employee needs to know what that expectation is. You're modeling the behavior, so that's the example, and you need to hold them to it. All right. I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.